Hi, my name's Rob Tuley and today we're going to talk about repository access control and branch protection. We're trying to achieve three goals. The first is that the owners and maintainers of the repository can manage it effectively themselves. The second one is that we're operating within a shared development or in a source model, so this repository should be open to code contributions from the wider Flutter Global community. And thirdly, those contributions, they must go through a approval process and a review process before they reach any of the critical branches. So we're going to take each of these in turn and look how they're done. So let's take this first one. Owners and maintainers can manage the repo. This is as simple as giving this set of users admin or maintain privileges. There's some subtle differences between the two. You can go and check them. I suggest you start with maintain privileges and escalate to admin if you really have to. What we do suggest is we suggest you grant these permissions to a team. So you create a team, put the set of users that you want in that team, and then grant the permissions to the team. It just makes it a lot easier when you start scaling out and having more repos, and you can manage members of the team and permissions separately. So by convention, there's two team names per capability. One is for the owner dash capability name. That usually has a single member, the owner, and the other one is the maintainers team, so maintainers dash the repo, the capability name, and that has the list of maintainers in. Okay, we're going to run through this process manually in GitHub just to show you how it's done in the UI. There is a quicker way, we'll show you that later. So let's create a new repository, a new capability. So we'll give it that cat prefix, cap example. It's going to be internal. We'll add a readme just so it's got something in, and it's got a branch. Okay, job's good. Right, we need to set up our permissions. By default, it will set whoever created it as the admin. So we just need to switch that over to these owner and maintainer teams. So here we go. Here's the training account as the admin. So what I want to do now is we want to create a new team. So I'm going to create a team, owner, example. It's going to be visible. Great. Create that team. It puts me in it by default. So that's brilliant. So now we just need to go back to our manage access screen. We need to invite the team. Okay. Example. Here we go. This one, give it a permission. In this case, we'll give it admin because it's the owner. And then we can take the direct permission off it. And then if we want to swap the owner, we can just swap whoever's in that team. Just handy. So we need to do exactly the same thing with the maintainers. So there we've got our two team, owner team and the maintainer team. I've got one member in both at the moment, which is probably not enough, but I could add some more members into the maintainers team, so I properly reflected the group who are going to manage this repository. So the next step is making sure that our repository is open to code contributions. So remember, the shared development or in a source model is for non-forking contributions because we're working internal open source model. So we must grant repo write access to quite a large group of people. Now there's an automatically maintained team called All Flutter Global. So what we want to do is we want to grant write access to that team. Now we do want to explain how we want those contributions to come in, so we should probably, as well as granting this access, write a contributing.md guide. Let's go do that. So here's our repository again, back into settings, back into manage access. And this time the team that we're inviting, All Flutter Global, and we're giving them write access. And there we go. We've granted 1,236 people right access to our repository. So it's now open to code contribution. Now there is a problem here, because while it's open to code contribution, it's wide open to code contribution, and we need to ensure that code contribution is reviewed and key branches are protected. Now you will know which of your key branches are depending on your own workflow, but what we're going to assume here is the default branch, main in this case, is the key branch, is our key release branch that we would release off. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that contributions can't get into this main branch without being approved and reviewed. And we probably want to make sure they can't get into the release branch without being approved and reviewed by a specific set of people. So we're going to require pull requests. We're going to add branch protection here. We're going to require pull requests before merging. We're going to dismiss stale pull request approvals when new commits are pushed. So every commitment needs to be approved. We're going to require review from code owners, which means a particular group of people need to review PRs, not just anyone. And we're going to require status checks passed before merging. So if there's any CI tests set up, they need to pass. And we'll include administrators in these checks. So any either enterprise, organization level administrators or admins on the repo can't simply just bypass these checks. They apply to absolutely everybody. So let's go do that. Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to pop into this branches in the settings. And you can see the default branch is main. We want to add a branch protection rule. Okay. So we want to apply it to main. That's our critical branch in this case. We want to require pull request reviews before merging. We want to dismiss stale pull request approvals when new commits push. We want to require review from code owners. We want to require status checks to pass before merging. You can add other constraints here if you like, but the other critical one we'd recommend would be to include administrators. So people with admin repos, i.e. the owner of the repo, can't bypass that connection. Now if this is not a particularly critical deployable thing, then you can always allow that bypass if you want to, but it's better not to. Okay, I'm going to create that pull request, create that branch protection rule, and you can see there it applies. It's applying to main branch. That's a good thing to check. And now our repository is protected. Now, we have said require review from code owners. We haven't set up any code owners on this repo yet. So if we go back here into the code, what we'd need to do is we'd need to go create a new file, a code owners file, in this repository that's specified the team. And usually that team would be the maintainers team or something along those lines. While it's possible, I wouldn't recommend that you manage all of your branch protection rules and your access permissions manually. Instead, I'd recommend you use a piece of automation that's dubbed the code governor. Now using this, all you need to manage then is you'll need to manage a single JSON file that is at the root level of your capability repo, and the instructions in that file will manage all the access control and branch protection on all the child repos, all the linked repos within that capability. So let's have a little look at what this JSON file looks like. So firstly, it's got a version. We're on 1.1 of the code governor at the moment, and you can opt into future versions as you wish. Secondly, it simply manages those two teams using GitHub usernames, so the owner and then the maintainers team. So you can add people to the maintainers team or remove them from it and change the owners. That will do the process that we looked at before, which is maintain membership of those two teams, the owner dash and then maintainers-team, and make sure that that team has all the right permissions on the repositories within this capability. You manage your branch protection rules, the definition of your branch protection rules, in this section. So what you do is you define a set of possible branch protection rules, and then you apply those to the repos within this capability. So here's the example of the definition of one of those rules. So we've given it a name or given it a key, which is main1 review, and you can see the parameters. We've said, right, we want to match branches that match main. We want to include administrators in this. We want to require they're accrued from cone owners, and we want to have one required review. So we could have 2 or 3, whatever we wanted. And then what we can do, that just defines a branch protection rule, and you can define more than one of those if you like. That's simply a branch protections node is simply a map, a keyed map, and then we just take the key and we apply that key further down where we list the repositories of our capability. So for briefness, I've just put one repository here, but you can imagine a typical repository typical capability might have 10 or more repositories. You'd have a big list of repositories here. Again, this is simply a map. And here we're taking my repo name repository and we're applying that branch protection rule to it. If you don't want to apply the branch protection rule to it, you just simply leave out that policy bit and it won't get any branch protection rules at all. And crucially, the owner and maintainers permissions and group will be applied to any repository in this set of repository nodes. So let's have a little look at the code governor in action. So here we are in a test capability. You can see we've got a codebases.json here, which has got all the familiar bits and bobs in it. What we'll do is we'll just have a little look at the pull request. So the code governor has been explicitly installed on this. I'm not covering how to do that in this video, but it runs as an action over here. So you can see there's the codebase. It's got governor. And if we look at some of the successful pull requests, so let's say you want to add and remove a maintainer here. What's happened here is, if we look at the file that's changed, there's been a pull request, in it's gone, and you can see this maintainers list has been changed. And then in the conversation itself, some of the automation has popped up and told you what's about to happen, and then when it's merged in, the team will have changed. So what we looked at today is we looked at how to set up access control and branch protection on your repositories. We had 3 goals: give owners and maintainers the ability to manage the repo. We achieved this via setting up some teams for them. Open the repo to code contributions. We did that by allowing write access to the All Flutter Global group, making sure that code must be reviewed and approved before it lands in critical branches that lead to downstream deployments and releases. We did that via branch protection rules, and we realized that we could automate all 3 of these things by using the code governor automation and simply declaring what we wanted in a codebases.json file in our capability repo. I'm Rob Tuley. You can find us on Slack in #shared codebase. I hope this has been useful.